Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine and I'm here showing up, being authentically myself and hoping to inspire you to do the same. So today, what are we talking about? We're talking about looking on the bright side and silver linings. And this is not me advocating in favor of having a Pollyanna attitude to life, but it's about how can we take experiences that, we could be reacting to in a negative way and find a way to react to them in a positive way. And what is the benefit of doing that? Well, we get to be happier and less stressed out. And I don't know about you, but I'm a fan of being happier and less stressed out. So I'm going to share with you an experience, something that happened over the weekend, which I could have construed as a negative thing. I could have been angry about, annoyed about, but I wasn't. And I'm really proud of myself for that because I got to just deal with a situation in a way that was peaceful and calm and relaxed instead of getting worked up about it. So I went to the cottage last weekend and it's a 2-hour drive there, 2-hour drive back. And, I was on my own, so nobody with me. And I stopped for gas along the way there and back and all of that. And then when I came back on Sunday night, I had stopped at a gas station on the way. Everything was fine with my car. But then when I got home, I unloaded the car. Now, for me, I don't have a driveway right in front of my home. My parking is around back. So what I do when I have tons of groceries, or in this case, things to unload, and a whole bunch of stuff from the weekend that I had brought, I pull up in front of my place, throw on the 4-ways, and then just unload as quickly as I can. And so that's what I did on Sunday. But when I got back into the car to start it, to go, move it and park the car, it wouldn't start. The dashboard was lighting up like a Christmas tree and lights were blinking and it was like boop, 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 like noise, but nothing was happening. Like it just wasn't starting. And my first thought, and I'm so proud of myself that instead of going to a negative thought and being really annoyed in that moment of like, why won't the car start? And like, oh my God, and how am I going to deal with this? My first thought was, wow, I'm so lucky that my car broke down right in front of my house. I mean, of all of the situations in which one's car can break down, having it break down right in front of your house is pretty awesome. So I just thought, I kept saying to myself, I'm so lucky, because I was also thinking about how much worse it could have been because I had stopped for gas. So why when I stopped for gas did the car start again, when I went to leave that gas station, but it didn't start, in front of my house. Like anywhere on my way up to the cottage or back home, the car could have broken down and it didn't. So that was, silver lining moment. And I felt really grateful that was my first thought. And then my second thought of being really grateful is that instead of being overwhelmed and like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? And what do I do now? I felt really grateful that I had CAA. So CAA is roadside assistance. You pay a yearly membership and then you get covered for, basic emergency roadside things that could happen to your car, like dead battery or flat tires, or if you need towing and all of that. And I had actually thought about either downgrading my membership or canceling it altogether this year because I was like, I've only ever used this once in the 5 years that I've had it, but I didn't. And so last Sunday, I was so grateful that I had maintained my membership, because my car was broken down in front of my house, but I didn't have a moment of panic and going like, okay, now I have to search garages or like towing places and figure out like who can come help me. And it's a Sunday night, so like I'm not gonna have any help, and like I didn't have to think any of that. I just pulled out my CAA card, called the number on the back, and somebody showed up within a half an hour. Like I felt really grateful in that moment that because this is such a well-run company and it's such a, I think, national, international network, that they just, they're on it. And so, I was getting text messages of like, okay, the CAA technician will be there in 10 minutes, follow his progress here. And I just thought, this is so amazing, because an experience that could have been really negative, really a big hassle, wasn't, and that's where also an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So the fact that I had the foresight to have the CAA membership is also something that I'm really grateful for, because as much as we can, I think we should put things in place in our lives that if something goes wrong, what the plan is. And if you have a vehicle, then somewhere along the way, things are going to go wrong. So how are you going to deal with that? And that's how we make stressful experiences in our lives less stressful, by already knowing, okay, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. So that's why I did not feel stressed out on Sunday when my car broke down. And it was actually really funny because, I had a fleeting thought that, okay, I had a to-do list and I wanted to do a few things that Sunday evening, but instead I sort of had to wait for CAA to get there. And so instead of being annoyed by that, I was like, okay, well, what can I do with my time and still be there and available for when CAA gets there? So I went outside and started picking raspberries, because I have a raspberry bush on my little tiny patio, and it's literally taken over most of my patio. And there's so many raspberries that I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with all these, but I was out there picking, and then the CAA guy showed up and he said, oh, like, I love raspberries. So I said, why don't you take some? And I packed a Ziploc bag of raspberries for him. And so it turned out to be a really positive experience because, I got to pick my raspberries, I got to share them with somebody, I got to connect on a human-to-human basis with the CAA, roadside assistance guy who, like, I'm sure he's never been given raspberries by anyone before. So, that whole experience could have been negative. I could have been annoyed by it. I could have, just been like, oh, the car broke down, now I'm gonna have to deal with this. But instead, I thought of all the good things about that, and then dealing with getting it fixed, because the battery wouldn't actually hold a charge. So I had to have the battery changed, but obviously the guy who came to do the roadside assistance didn't have the battery for my car, but he told me that through CAA I can call and book battery change at my home. Like, they'll just come to my driveway and change the battery right there. I don't have to take the car anywhere. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. Like, I don't have to take up half my day of, getting the car to a garage, which I couldn't have because the battery wouldn't hold a charge. So I would have had to have the car towed somewhere. This would have eaten up so much of my time. I would have had to take time off work, or like, it could have been a nightmare, and it wasn't. And so I just felt really grateful for that. And instead of being annoyed about like, oh, I have to spend money on this car repair, I was just like, I'm grateful that I have the money, you know? Sure, I put it on my credit card, but I'm thinking to myself, there's a lot of countries in the world, and I've lived in those countries where people don't have credit. If you don't have the cash to pay for something, you don't get the thing. So I just felt lucky on so many regards and so many points about this experience. Like, so lucky I broke down in front of the house. So lucky I had CAA and I knew how to deal with the problem, and that, you know, dealing with it was easy. So lucky that I have money to pay for the repairs. You know, so lucky in so many ways. And that's something we need to practice. It's not something that happens overnight, but the way that I would suggest that you practice it is just anytime something happens and when you're tempted to get annoyed, is to say to yourself, how much worse could this actually have been? Because again, I'm not trying to get anybody to look at negative things or or not look on the bright side, but the way that you look on the bright side is by thinking of, well, this is how much worse it could have been, and it wasn't that. So I'm really happy about that. And through these events happening, through practicing that, it becomes a habit to the point where your first thought isn't annoyance or anger or frustration. It's gratitude of like, wow, it could have been worse and it wasn't, you know? So that's where I'm going to ask you today's question. Where in your life could you be looking on the bright side? What are you dealing with that feels like, you know, a negative thing maybe, or a frustration or something that you just, I don't want to deal with this, man. Think about that and think about, how could this be worse? Because it really, really could be worse. And then see if you can find a silver lining. See if you can say, well, I'm actually really glad it didn't turn out this way, or that, that's not how it unfolded. And through doing that with enough of our life experiences, we just get really good at looking for the silver linings in everything. So that is, that's the question for the day. That's the thought for the day. That's, what I can leave you with as far as how to be happier. And I want you to be happy. I want me to be happy, because we all deserve to be happy. But the funny thing is that being happy is often about reframing the way that we think about life, and not really about what's happening in life, because life is always going to be messy and imperfect. And so how we deal with the imperfections, how we look at those blips on our radars, that's what's going to affect how happy we are. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I'm going to wish you a fantastic day. I hope this helped. And yeah, that's it. See you tomorrow.